guys.
Happy Wednesday.
Welcome back to Devotions with Emma and Sammy. We're so excited that you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about a guy named Paul. If you haven't heard of Paul, he has written most of the books in the New Testament. So, the New Testament, if you remember, is anything from Matthew on. And many of them are letters that Paul has written to different churches. But a little bit more about Paul. His name was actually Saul, and he persecuted followers of Jesus. So persecuting means that he mistreated them. Many times he would put them in jail or even have them killed. But Jesus came to him in a vision, and that vision changed Paul's life. So he changed his name from Saul to Paul, and he committed to telling so many people about Jesus. And that's what he's doing in these letters to the churches. He's helping them better understand God and better understand how to live this Christian life. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what he says in his letter to the church in Rome, which Emma is going to read for us.
Yes. Okay, so first our theme is the New Testament, and our main idea is Paul's letters. And that verse Sammy was talking about is Romans chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. That is our verse. Over to you, Sammy.
So thanks, Emma. So this is what Paul says in his letter to the church in Rome. The thing that we're going to focus on in this letter is this idea of worship. So a lot of times when we think of worship, it might not be something we talk about, but you might talk about it in the way of singing at church or even going to church in general. But this author of the book that we've been going through says worship is any time we put God's way before our own way. So in his letter to Rome, Paul says, this is truly the way to worship him. And he's talking about how we should present ourselves as a living and holy sacrifice, which sounds kind of weird. But he goes on to say that this looks like not copying the world. So not doing what the world is doing, not doing what maybe other people around you are doing, but letting God transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think. So all of this is inside of each person. Which is kind of a hard thing to grasp. So our question today is, I want you to think about worship in this way of putting God's will above your own will, putting what God wants above what you want. And I want you just to think, what would this look like in my life? If I were to put God above myself, what's the first thing that you think of? So I want you to take some time and ask yourself that question right now. Welcome back. Thanks for taking the time to think about that question. That's going to take us straight into our prayer for today. I want you to take some time and just ask God to help you do that. Whatever you're thinking of, even if you're like, I can't think of an example, but I'm just thinking about this idea of worship, this idea of a relationship with God in general. Take some time and say, God, I want you to help me understand this, or I want you to help me put your choices and your decisions above my own. This is something we all need to be doing constantly because it's so easy for us to think of ourselves more than God. So take some time, ask him to either help you better understand this or to help you put his decisions and his choices above your own. So pause the video right now. Okay, thanks so much for taking the time to look at that prayer and to spend some time talking to God. We're going to keep talking about Paul's letters to these churches, so stay tuned for that. But we're going to go over to Emma for our invitation.
Alrighty, so today is National Nurses Day, and we are so grateful for what they do every day, but I think it's important for us to show them our appreciation and support now more than ever. So for today's invitation, we would like to invite you guys to send your local nurses cards of gratitude. You can stay tuned for the following slide, and I'll insert more detailed instructions on how you can do this if you choose to participate. We will see you tomorrow, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.